The summer of 1945 presented a unique juxtaposition across the Kansas countryside.
German women, clad in prison uniforms, labored alongside American farmers. While the majority of prison of war camps across the United States primarily detained male combatants, Camp Concordia distinguished itself. It housed 120 captured German Wehrmacht auxiliaries, now thousands of miles from their war-torn homeland. Among them was Greta Hoffmann, the daughter of a Munich baker and a former communications officer. She stood beside the camp mess hall, arms crossed, observing American volunteers unload crates of supplies. Her stomach gnawed with hunger, yet she refused to reveal any weakness. "They feed us like animals," she murmured in German to Ilsa, her bunkmate. "At least they feed us." Ilsa quietly retorted. A moment later, an American woman approached, carrying a tray draped with a checkered cloth. Martha Henderson had been volunteering at the camp for 3 months, driven by an unwavering resolve to extend Christian charity, even to perceived enemies. "Good afternoon, ladies," Martha offered in stilted German. "I've brought something special." Greta's eyes narrowed. "We do not require your charity." Martha smiled, unperturbed. She lifted the cloth, revealing several deep brown square confections, glistening invitingly in the sunlight. The rich aroma of chocolate wafted through the air. "What is this?" Ilsa involuntarily leaned closer, asking. "Brownies," Martha explained. "My grandmother's recipe." Greta dismissed it with a scoff. "In Germany, we have real chocolate cake. Black Forest cake. This looks like burnt bread." But an unmistakable rumble from her stomach betrayed her facade of indifference. Martha noticed. "Just try a small piece," Martha gently urged, extending the tray. "If you don't like it, I won't bother you further." Greta hesitated. Other prisoners nearby paused, their gazes fixed on her. She had become their unofficial leader, the one who upheld their dignity and reminded them of their German identity. What message would it send if she accepted American charity? "Greta," Ilsa whispered, "when was the last time we tasted real chocolate?" The question hung heavy in the air. Greta's mind drifted to her father's bakery, the scent of fresh bread each morning, her mother secretly slipping her marzipan thins. That world now felt like a distant dream. "Fine," Greta snapped. "Just one, to prove it's nothing special." She took a piece from the tray, surprised by its warmth. The other women watched silently as she brought it to her lips. The first bite was revelatory. Greta's eyes widened involuntarily. The texture was unlike anything she had anticipated. Rich yet surprisingly delicate, with a soft, velvety chocolate core that melted luxuriously on her tongue. The chocolate flavor was intense, almost intoxicating, imbued with a hint of vanilla and coffee she couldn't quite place. "Well?" Martha inquired, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Greta swallowed, struggling to maintain her composure. "It's acceptable." Before Greta could stop her, Ilsa snatched a piece. Her reaction was far less restrained. A small sound of pure delight escaped her throat. "More than acceptable," Ilsa declared in German. "This is wonderful." Within seconds, the other women converged around Martha's tray. Greta watched as her carefully constructed wall of defiance crumbled, dismantled by a simple American confection. She felt something she hadn't experienced in months, a chink appearing in her armor of pride. "There's more," Martha offered. "I teach baking classes in town. If the camp commander approves, perhaps some of you could learn to make them yourselves." "Why would you teach us?" Greta asked suspiciously. "We are your enemies." Martha's expression softened. "The war's over, dear, and I believe a good recipe can bridge any divide." That night, Greta lay on her bunk, unable to sleep. The taste of the brownie lingered in her memory, mingling with something far more unsettling, the unexpected kindness in Martha's eyes. For months, she had painstakingly built walls, convincing herself and the other women that Americans were crude, their culture inferior, and that to accept anything from them was to betray Germany. Yet, that brownie had been perfect. "You're thinking about it too, aren't you?" Ilsa whispered from the lower bunk. "Thinking about what?" "The baking classes. Learning their recipes." Greta stared at the ceiling. "A betrayal of what? A country that sent us here." "A war? We lost. Ilsa's voice held an unfamiliar edge Greta had never heard before. Or perhaps you're afraid of something else. What do you mean? Perhaps they aren't who we were told they were. Perhaps we were wrong about more than just their deserts. Before Greta could respond, footsteps echoed in the corridor. The night guard was on patrol. Both women fell silent, but Ilsa's words lingered in the darkness like smoke. The following morning, Greta awoke to find a note slipped under her door. It was written in neat German. * baking classes begin Thursday at 2 p.m. All interested prisoners are welcome, Marta Henderson. Greta crushed the note in her hand. She had made her stand. She would not participate in American propaganda, would not smile for their cameras, would not pretend that a few kind gestures could erase everything. By Wednesday evening, however, a dozen women had signed up for Martha's class. You should come, Ilsa urged, as they scrubbed American uniforms in large metal tubs in the camp laundry. What else are we to do? Sit on our bunks and reminisce about better days. We maintain our dignity, Greta replied, her hands red from the hot water and harsh soap. Dignity does not fill an empty stomach. Dignity does not teach us skills we can use when we go home. Ilsa paused, wringing a shirt with more force than usual. If we go home. The uncertainty of those last words struck Greta deeply. None of them truly knew what awaited them in Germany. Reports filtering into the camp spoke of devastation. Cities reduced to rubble, families displaced, or worse. Her father's bakery was in Munich. Had it survived the bombing? F.R. Ulaine Hoffmann voiced interrupted her thoughts. Greta turned to see Lieutenant Sarah Morrison, a camp administrative officer. The young American woman held a clipboard, her expression neither friendly nor hostile, merely professional. The camp commander wishes to see you, Lieutenant Morrison stated. Greta's stomach tightened. Why? He didn't say. Please follow me. As Greta followed the lieutenant through the compound, other prisoners watched with worried expressions. A summons from the camp commander was rarely good news. Had someone reported her negative comments about the Brownies? Was she to be punished for her attitude? They entered the administrative building, its walls adorned with maps and notices. Commander Wilson sat behind a large desk, his graying hair and weathered face indicating a career military man. He gestured to a chair. Sit down, Fräulein Hoffmann. Greta remained standing. I prefer to stand. Wilson's eyebrow twitched slightly, but he did not argue. I've been reviewing your file. You worked in a bakery before the war. The question caught her off guard. My father owned a bakery. I helped him. And you read English? Some I learned at school. Wilson produced a folder and opened it. We have a situation. The camp kitchen is understaffed, and frankly, food complaints from both prisoners and guards have reached an unacceptable level. He looked up at her. Mrs. Henderson suggested you might be qualified to help improve things. Greta's mind raced. This was a trap. It had to be. I am a prisoner, not your employee. You will still be a prisoner, but one with access to a real kitchen, real ingredients, and the ability to make life better for everyone here, including your fellow German prisoners. He leaned back in his chair. Consider it. You could ensure your people get decent bread, proper meals. Isn't that worth setting aside your pride? My pride is all you have left us. I know, Wilson interrupted, his tone not unkind. I've seen it before, but pride doesn't bake bread. Fräulein Hoffmann's skill does, and from what Mrs. Henderson tells me, you have considerable skill. Greta's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to refuse, to walk out, to maintain the high walls she had built, but Ilsa's face, radiant with joy at the taste of the brownie, flashed through her mind. Teope inith. The fleeting happener. What exactly would I be doing? She heard herself ask. Commander Wilson pushed a paper across the desk. You would work under Sergeant Cooper, Ared Cook, plan menus, oversee food preparation, train other prisoners in kitchen duties. Mrs. Henderson has agreed to donate ingredients for baking classes twice a week. And if I refuse, then you continue doing laundry, and everyone continues eating the same bland food. Wilson's expression remained neutral. No punishment, no repercussions. The choice is entirely yours. Greta stared at the document. It was in English, but she could discern enough words. Kitchen assignment, extra rations, educational opportunities. I need to think about it. she said. You have until tomorrow morning. Wilson stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Dismissed. Lieutenant Morrison escorted Greta back to the barracks. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the compound. Women were returning from various work details, some from the fields, some from the sewing shop, a few from the library, where they were permitted to read approved books. Ilse awaited by their bunks, her face lined with concern. What happened? Are you in trouble? No. Greta sank heavily onto her bunk. They want me to work in the kitchen, to improve the food. That's wonderful. Is it? Greta's voice was sharp. Don't you see what they're doing? They want us to be grateful, to forget we are prisoners, to turn us into what? People who eat decent food. Ilse knelt beside her. Greta, I know you try to protect us, to keep us strong, but strength isn't just about resistance. Sometimes it's about survival, about adapting. My father would never. Your father isn't here. Ilse's words were gentle but firm. You are. We are. We have to make choices based on where we are, not where we wish we were. That night, Greta skipped dinner. She walked the perimeter of the camp, near the fence where prisoners were permitted. Beyond the barbed wire, Kansas stretched in endless wheat fields, golden in the lingering sunset. It looked nothing like Germany, yet the serene beauty of the landscape stirred a familiar ache in her chest. It's beautiful, isn't it? Greta turned to find Martha Henderson standing a few feet away on the other side of the fence. The older woman carried a basket covered with the same checkered cloth. What are you doing here? Greta asked. I live nearby. Sometimes I walk this road in the evenings. Martha lifted the cloth, revealing more brownies. I thought you might need these. I heard you missed dinner. How did you? The camp isn't that big. Word travels fast. Martha chuckled. I also heard about Commander Wilson's offer. Greta's defenses bristled again. Did you tell him to approach me? I merely suggested that your skills were wasted in the laundry. The rest was his idea. Martha placed the basket near the fence. I know you think I'm trying to manipulate you, dear, but I truly am not. I just believe everyone deserves meaningful work, even in difficult circumstances. Why do you care about us? Martha was silent for a moment, her gaze distant. I had a son, Thomas. He died in Normandy, a few days after D-Day. He was Jazz. Greta felt a tightening in her throat. I'm sorry. I am too. Sorry for him. Sorry for all the children lost, German and American alike. Martha's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I can't bring him back, but I can try to ensure that those who survive, all of them, have a chance at something better than hatred and bitterness. She turned to leave, then paused. These brownies are yours, whether you take the kitchen job or not. No strings attached. After Martha walked away, Greta stared at the basket. She thought of her father's bakery, of the pride he poured into every loaf of bread, every pastry. He always said baking was an act of love, a way to nourish not just the body, but the soul. What would he have wanted her to do? Greta reached through the fence, pulling the basket to order. The brownies were still warm. The next morning, Greta stood outside Commander Wilson's office, the signed document in her hand. She had barely slept, her mind a whirlwind of arguments and counter-arguments. But as dawn broke, she knew what her father would say. A baker feeds people. That was not collaboration. That was purpose. I will do it, she told Wilson, sliding the paper across his desk. He nodded, unsurprised. Report to the kitchen tomorrow morning. Sergeant Cooper will be expecting you. Word spread quickly through the camp. By lunchtime, Greta faced mixed reactions. Some women congratulated her, seeing an opportunity. Others whispered collaborator when they thought she couldn't hear. Greta ignored both factions, focusing instead on the weight of what she had agreed to. That afternoon, she attended Martha's baking class. A dozen women crowded into a small room next to the mess hall, where Martha had set up workstations with mixing bowls, measuring cups, and precious ingredients. But sugar, chocolate, eggs. Today we will make brownies, Martha announced in her careful German. But first, I will teach you measurements, American measurements. Greta watched Martha demonstrate, her movements precise and practiced. Cups instead of grams, teaspoons instead of milliliters. Everything was different, yet the basic chemistry remained the same. Fat, sugar, flour, leavening, heat. Now you try, Martha said, dividing the women into pairs. Greta found herself working with a young woman named Frida, a radio operator still in her teens. Frida's hands trembled as she cracked eggs. I've never baked anything, Frida confessed. My mother always said I could burn water. Then you will learn, Greta said, surprised by the gentleness in her own voice. She guided Frida's hands, showing her how to fold the chocolate into the batter without over. Baking is just following instructions and understanding the importance of each step. As the brownies baked, filling the room with the rich scent of chocolate, something shifted deep within Greta. She looked at the other women America's enemies, prisoners of war, daughters of a defeated nation. Lafayette spilled flour, comparing their stirring techniques. For the first time in months, they looked like people, not just victims of war. When the timer chimed, Martha pulled out the trays. The brownies were perfect. Crisp edges, gooey centers, just right. Now, for the best part, Martha said with a mischievous grin. She produced a container of vanilla ice cream and began scooping it onto the warm brownie squares. Ilsa gasped. Hot and cold together. Trust me, Martha said. Greta sampled the combination, the warm, rich brownie melting into the cold, creamy ice cream. The contrast was extraordinary, each element enhancing the other. She closed her eyes, and in that moment, she was no longer a prisoner. She was simply a person experiencing something beautiful. This is what I want you to understand, Martha murmured, looking at the women's faces. Sometimes, the best things come from unexpected combinations, from bringing together things that don't seem like they should fit. Greta met Martha's gaze and understood the deeper meaning. It wasn't just about dessert. That night, as Greta prepared for her first day in the kitchen, she found another note slipped under her door. But this one was not from Martha. The handwriting was crude, the German blunt. Traitors get what they deserve. Beware. Greta read it, her hands trembling. She scanned the barracks, but everyone seemed occupied with their own affairs. Someone here hated her enough to threaten her. The question was, who? Greta crumpled the threat and shoved it under her mattress. She would not give the writer the satisfaction of seeing her afraid, but as she lay on her bunk that night, every sound made her jump. Footsteps in the corridor, whispered conversations, the creak of bunk frames. You're awake, Ilsa whispered from below. Can't sleep. A bit nervous for tomorrow. Greta almost told her about the note, then stopped. If Ilsa knew, she would worry. Or worse, she might be the one who wrote it. Greta hated herself for the thought, but trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Just thinking things over, Greta finally said. The following morning, Greta reported to the kitchen. Sergeant Cooper was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, his uniform perpetually dusted with flour. He eyed her with palpable skepticism. So, you're Wilson's solution to my problems, he said in English. I bake, Greta replied, her accent thick, but a meaning clear. We'll see about that. He gestured to a massive industrial mixer. Bread. Needs several large loaves baked by midday. Think you can handle it. Greta assessed kitchen, the ovens, the workspaces, the ingredients. It was larger than her father's bakery, but the principles were the same. She rolled up her sleeves. I'll need yeast, flour, salt, water, and someone to help with kneading. Cooper's eyebrows rose. You're giving orders now? You asked if I could handle it. I can, but not alone. A flicker of something akin to respect entered Cooper's eyes. He called over to other prisoners assigned to kitchen duty. German women Greta knew, but not intimately. You three worked together. Hoffman's in charge of the bread. For the next few hours, Greta immersed herself in the work. Her hands remembered every motion, kneading the dough until it reached perfect elasticity, shaping loaves with practiced ease, instinctively judging oven temperatures. The other women followed her instructions without question, perhaps sensing her competence. perhaps simply grateful for clear direction. When the first batches of bread emerged from the ovens, golden brown and fragrant, even Cooper looked impressed. "Not bad, Hoffman," he conceded. "Not bad at all." That evening, an unusual vibrancy filled the mess hall. Prisoners and guards alike praised the bread, a stark contrast to the dense, flavorless blocks they had endured for months. Greta and Ilsa sat together, exhausted but content. "Everyone is talking about you," Ilsa said, tearing off a piece of bread with obvious pleasure. "You're a hero. I just made bread. You brought hope." Ilsa leaned closer. "Do you know what that means here? In this place?" Before Greta could respond, a commotion erupted in the mess hall. A woman screamed in German, her voice laced with fury. Greta recognized her. Hilda Braun, a former SS auxiliary who maintained a rigid Nazi ideology even in captivity. "This is what we have become," Hilda shrieked from atop a bench, grateful for American scraps, baking their bread like servants. "Have you all forgotten who we are?" A hush fell over the room. Guards moved towards Hilda, but she continued, her gaze sweeping the crowded space until it landed on Greta. "And you," Hilda pointed directly at her. "You are the worst, leading us to collaboration, to shame. You are a disgrace to Germany." Greta slowly rose, her heart pounding. All eyes in the mess hall were fixed on her. She could remain silent, let the guards handle it, or she could finally articulate what she had been wrestling with for weeks. "Germany lost." Greta's voice cut through the room. "We lost. We can choose to be bitter about it for the rest of our lives, or we can learn to live in the present." "Coward." Hilda spat. "No," Greta said calmly. "I'm just tired of being hungry, tired of being angry, tired of pretending that pride is strength." The guards reached Hilda, escorting her out amidst her continued shouts, but Greta barely noticed. She looked at the faces around her, some hostile, some thoughtful, some grateful. She had drawn her line, made her unwavering stand. There was no turning back. As the mess hall slowly returned to normal, Greta felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Martha, her expression proud. "That took courage," Martha said. "Or foolishness," Greta replied. "Sometimes they are the same thing." That night, Greta found her bunk ransacked, her few private belongings strewn across the floor, her blanket torn, and a new note on her pillow last warning. Greta stared at the mess, her hands clenched into fists. Other women around her pretended not to notice, their gazes pointedly over. The scent of fear, sharp and metallic, now pervaded the barracks. "Who did this?" Greta demanded, her voice cutting through the false calm. Silence. Then Ilsa came over, her face pale. "Hilda has friends, women who think like her. And you." Greta turned to face her bunkmate. "What do you think?" "I think you're brave, and I think courage often comes at a cost." Ilsa helped Greta gather her scattered possessions. "You need to report this to the guards." "No." Greta's jaw was set. "That would only prove I'm weak, that I need American protection." "Pride again," Ilsa murmured. "It will be the death of you." But Greta couldn't report it. Not yet. Not yet. To do so would undermine everything she had said in the mess hall, would make her seem exactly what Hilda accused her of, being a collaborator seeking favor from her captors. The next morning, Greta arrived in the kitchen to find Sergeant Cooper awaiting an unusual request. "There's a town celebration next week," he explained. 4th of July. Commander Wilson wants to make a goodwill gesture, have some prisoners involved, bake desserts for the townspeople. He paused. "He specifically asked for you to lead it." Greta's stomach churned. "Bake for Americans, for their Independence Day celebration." "I know how it sounds, but think about it. You'd be representing the camp, showing that German prisoners can make positive contributions. It could help with future repatriation efforts. Or I could be killed by my own people," Greta murmured in German. "What was that?" "Nothing. I need time to think." But Cooper shook his head. "Wilson wants an answer by the end of today. It's a big opportunity. Hoffman, don't waste it." Greta spent the entire morning in a daze, mechanically preparing lunch while her mind raced. Baking for the 4th of July would be seen as the ultimate betrayal by women like Hilda. But refusing could cost her the kitchen position, possibly sending her back to the laundry, to a life devoid of purpose. During her break, she found Martha in the baking classroom, preparing for the afternoon session. "I heard about the 4th of July request," Martha said, cutting straight to the point. "Of course you did." Greta slumped into a chair. "Was this your suggestion too?" "No, but I think you should do it." "Why? So I can be hated even more by my own people." Martha sat opposite her, her expression serious. "Because you have a gift, Greta. Gifts shouldn't be hidden away because of politics, or pride, or fear. They should be shared." "Easy for you to say. No one is threatening you, aren't they?" Martha's voice was soft. "I've received letters, angry ones, from townspeople who think I'm too kind to enemy prisoners, who say I'm dishonoring my son's memory by teaching you to bake." She smiled sadly. "Hate, dear, exists on both sides of the fence. The question is whether we let it win." Greta looked at this woman who had lost a son, who had every reason to hate, yet chose to teach, to share, to bridge divides. Something loosened in her chest. "What would you bake?" Greta asked. "For the 4th of July?" Martha's eyes lit up. "Well, brownies, of course, and apple pie. That's as American as it gets. Maybe some cookies, too. Frosted cookies, decorated with red, white, and blue icing." She leaned forward. "But my idea is this. What if you also made some German desserts? Show them that different traditions can stand side by side." "Like what? What did your father bake that people loved?" Greta closed her eyes, remembering. "Bee sting cake, honey, almonds, and cream. Perfect. Teach me how to make it. And we'll add that to the celebration. American desserts and German desserts, displayed side by side." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Greta imagined her father's recipes, honed over decades, presented to Americans in Kansas. Would they appreciate it? Would they understand the care and tradition baked into every layer? "I'll do it," Greta said. "But I need protection. The threats are getting worse." Martha's expression turned grim. "Tell Commander Wilson today." "I can't." "Yes, you can, because if anything happens to you, those women win. Fear wins. And I don't believe you're someone who lets fear win." That afternoon, Greta stood in Wilson's office for the second time, this time with the threat notes in her hand. She explained everything: the vandalism, the warnings, and the growing hostility from Hilda's faction. Wilson did not interrupt, his expression growing steadily darker. When she finished, he picked up the phone. "Lieutenant Morrison, I need you to investigate these threats against prisoner Hoffman. Interview everyone in a barracks, and move Hoffman to a single room in the administrative building until this is resolved." "Sir, I don't need special treatment," Greta began. "This isn't special treatment. This is basic safety." Wilson's tone was unequivocal. "You are valuable to the functioning of this camp, and I will not have you intimidated." "Understood." Greta nodded, feeling something unexpected: relief. As she left the office, she passed Hilda in the corridor, being escorted by guards. Their eyes met, and Hilda's expression was pure venom. "You will regret this," Hilda hissed in German. "Perhaps," Greta replied, "but at least I will regret something I chose, not something fear chose for me." The week leading up to the 4th of July passed in a blur of flour and sugar and meticulous instruction. Greta worked alongside Martha and 6 other prisoners' women who had volunteered despite the risks, eager to be part of something larger than their captivity. They baked hundreds of brownies, dozens of apple pies, countless frosted cookies, and Greta taught them her father's bee sting cake recipe, her hands moving through familiar motions, while her voice explained each step in German, with Martha translating into English. "The honey must be heated just so," Greta explained, watching the golden liquid bubble in the pot. "Too hot it burns, too cool, and the almonds will not caramelize well." Frida, the young woman who had never baked, stirred the honey mixture carefully. "Like this?" Perfect. You were born for this, Frieda. Behamed and Greta felt an unexpected surge of pride. She was teaching, passing on knowledge, continuing her father's legacy in the most improbable of places. Lieutenant Morrison had identified 3 women from Hilda's group, responsible for the threats. They were transferred to different barracks and assigned work details far from the kitchen. Hilda herself was placed in solitary confinement, awaiting a disciplinary hearing. The immediate danger had passed, but Greta still felt eyes on her whenever she moved through the compound. On July 13, the day before the celebration, Martha arrived in the kitchen with unexpected news. "The town council wants to see you," she said, as Greta's hands were deep in bread dough. "Why?" "They're curious. A German prisoner baking for their Independence Day celebration. It's unusual. Some are supportive, others," Martha trailed off. "They want to see who you are. If you're refused, then they'll imagine who you are. And imagination is rarely kind." That night, Greta found herself in the town hall, facing a dozen American civilians. They sat in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Martha stood beside her, a steady presence. Fr. Elaine Huffman, the council chairman, began, an elderly man with wire-rimmed glasses. "We appreciate your willingness to participate in our celebration, but some citizens have reservations. They want to know why a German soldier is being given this opportunity." "I was not a soldier," Greta said carefully, her English slow but clear. "I was a communications officer. I followed orders. I did not kill anyone. But you served the Nazi regime." A woman in the front row said sharply, "You were part of the machine that killed millions." The words hit like a physical blow. For months, Greta had sidestepped this truth, hiding behind excuses of just following orders, just doing my job. But here, facing these Americans, she could no longer hide. "Yes," she said softly, "I was part of it. I did not know." She paused, shaking her head. "No, that is a lie. I knew things were wrong. I heard rumors. Primera, WWII things. But I told myself it was not my concern, that I was just a baker's daughter doing my duty." Silence filled the room. Greta felt tears sting her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "I cannot change what I did, or what I did not do." She looked at each council member in turn. "But I can choose what I do now. I can bake bread that feeds people. I can teach other women skills they will need. I can try to be better than I was." The chairman studied her for a long moment. "What is the meaning of this German cake you intend to offer?" "It is my father's recipe. He was a good man. He baked for everyone. Rich, poor, Jew, Christian. He believed bread brought people together." Greta's voice grew steady. "I want to honor him, to show that not all Germans were monsters, that there is beauty in our culture, even if our government was evil." Another long silence. Then the chairman slowly nodded. "Very well, Fräulein Hoffmann. You may participate, but understand that eyes will be on you, judging you. One misstep, one hint of disrespect, and you will be confined permanently back behind that fence." "I understand. Thank you." "Thank you." As they left the town hall, Martha squeezed Greta's arm tightly. That took immense courage. "Too long," Greta replied. "I should have had that courage sooner." Dawn on the 4th of July was clear and hot. The celebration was held in the town square, festooned with bunting and flags, a brass band playing patriotic tunes. A dedicated area was set up for the dessert tables, and Greta and her team spent the morning arranging their confections. Brownies were topped with small American flags. Apple pies, still warm, boasted golden, flaky crusts. Frosted cookies glittered with colored icing. And at the center, Greta placed her father's bee-sting cake. 3 large cakes, their tops shimmering with caramelized honey and almonds. Around the midday townspeople began to arrive, many casting curious, skeptical glances at the dessert tables. Greta stood behind the table in her prisoner uniform, acutely aware of how out of place she looked, an enemy among them on their most patriotic day. An elderly veteran, his chest adorned with medals, was the first to approach. He stared at Greta for a long moment, and she braced herself for anger. "What's that one?" he asked, pointing to the beesting cake. "German cake. Beesting cake. My father's recipe." "Your father was a baker?" "Yes, Iranin." "Munich." The veteran nodded slowly. "I was in Munich in April. Saw what was left of it." He paused. "Did your father survive?" "I don't know. I haven't heard from him since I was captured." The veteran's expression shifted. Not quite sympathy, but understanding. War's hell for everyone, even those who lose. He pointed to the cake again. "Give me a piece of that one, and a brownie." Greta cut him generous portions with trembling hands. He took a bite of the beesting cake, chewed thoughtfully, then nodded. "Damn good. Your father taught you well." "Thank you," Greta whispered. After that, the floodgates opened. People queued curious about the German cake, willing to try something different. Greta served them all, answering questions about the recipes, about her father, about pre-war Germany. Some conversations were brief and awkward. Others lingered, touching on deeper things: loss, survival, and the possibility of moving forward. By late afternoon, all the desserts were sold out. The beesting cake was particularly popular, with several people asking Greta if she could teach them how to make it. As the celebration wound down and Greta cleared the dessert area, a young woman in her 20s approached, her eyes red. "I'm Sarah," she said. "My husband died in Bastogne." He was just. Greta froze, unsure what to say. "I came here today intending to hate you," Sarah continued, "to tell you what I thought about Germans being celebrated in our town." She looked at the empty cake pans. "But then I tasted your father's cake, and it was delicious. And then I realized," she wiped her eyes, "I realized that hating you isn't going to bring David back. It won't change anything. It will just make the world smaller and darker." "I'm sorry," Greta said. "For your husband. For all of it." Sarah nodded, then did something unexpected. She reached out and gently squeezed Greta's hand, just for a moment. Then she walked away. Greta stood there, surrounded by empty plates and crumpled napkins, feeling something break open deep inside her. All the walls she had built, all the pride and anger and fear, cracked and fell away, leaving her feeling exposed, yet somehow lighter. Martha appeared beside her, smiling. "You did it." "Did what?" "You built a bridge with butter, flour, and your father's love." That night, back in camp, Greta lay in her new single room, reflecting on the day. She thought of the veteran who had seen Munich in ruins, of Sarah who had lost her husband yet chose understanding over hate, and of her father, his recipe traveling across an ocean to touch the hearts of strangers. She didn't know if she would ever see Germany again, if she would ever know if her father had survived, or if she could truly atone for her silence during the war. But she knew this. She had made a choice, not to forget who she was, but to become someone better. Tomorrow, she would wake up and bake bread, because that is what bakers do. They feed people. They nourish hope, and they prove that even in the darkest of times, there is still sweetness to be found.